So, welcome to video number 2. My name is Paul.
And I'm Mark.
And together we are WeSellAnyCompany.com, the complete guide to selling your business or buying a business. Any questions or concerns you might have, these videos are here to solve those. And this week we are looking at how long it will take to sell your UK based business in 2022. For that is the year we are in now. Last year went really fast, didn't it?
Extremely.
It's like,
even with COVID.
I know, yeah. But we are indeed in 2022 now, and hopefully we won't be locked down for most of it, and we can actually get out and talk to other members of the human race. And for all of you people who are wanting to sell a business, you can buy a business. Isn't that wonderful? So, how long is it going to take? Generally, how long does it take to sell a business?
So something we covered in the last video, it's it can depend on the business. If you're looking for a general rule of thumb, 6 to 8 months is a good one to work off.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it depends on how you sell your business, what methods you use. So it can take, if you've got serious investors who've got the money available and want to move quickly, it can take 12 weeks all the way through the process, from them deciding, doing some due diligence, making an offer, getting all the legals done. Some companies move even quicker than that. On the other hand, it can take a year, 2 years, depending on how well run the business is, how up to date all the information is. There's some technical aspects to selling the business, so it just all depends on the business really. So there's not really a general rule of thumb. There is 6 to 8 months would generally say, but
Okay.
it can take any time really.
Well, before we dive in, I want to just sort of talk about something that's not often thought of, but it's something that I think concerns every business owner. If I've spent years slaving away and pouring my love and devotion into a business, I'm not going to just want to sell it to anybody. Do you know what I mean? There's the idea that if they've got the right price pocket, if they've got the purse, then you'll sell it, but that's not necessarily the case, is it, for a lot of people?
It depends. You can see, very good offers being made for businesses, and once the owner finds out who's buying it, or does a little bit of due diligence themselves on the buyers and what they're going to be doing with it, that can be a deal breaker if they're not going to continue sort of their legacy as they see it. So again, it all depends on who's selling and who's buying and what advice they're being given.
Yeah.
You will have buyers who just want out and will sell it to anybody for the right price, or you will have people on the other side of the fence that have poured love, sweat and tears into a business and don't want to see it go in a different direction and would rather sell it to somebody else. So
it's something that occurred to me,
really
because with my
depends,
business, if I was to sell my business, I would be heartbroken to think that it went to somebody who's just going to do something else to it, or just sell it off, or break it up. Or
see, if I was selling my business, I wouldn't really mind as long as I got the money I wanted. So, it just depends on your mentality really, and how emotionally involved you are. I think it probably just depends on the circumstance at the time.
Yeah.
What you really want to be doing is getting your business in a position to be sold in the first place, and that's a nice worry to have who you sell it to, because selling and finding buyers is generally the hardest part.
Yeah. But there you go. So buyers, beware. If you're not a nice buyer, some people will not want to sell you their business. And some people will. So there you go. Right, okay, let's dive in then. So we're going to look at the psychology first of selling a business. If your business, it's like selling anything else, I suppose. Businesses very often sort of trade in services or products, and they have a strategy, they have a sales team, they have all of that going on, which and a great marketing plan and all these things going on, which helps them to sell their products to their audience, and then they therefore make a profit. But for some reason, they don't look at selling the business in the same way. They don't lavish the same care and attention on the actual sale of their business as they have Does that make sense with the products or the services that they
Yeah,
actually
because
sell?
obviously, unless they've got an exit plan in place, which not a lot of businesses do have, probably, I mean, if you said 95% of business owners are concentrated on running their business, you might have 5% who are thinking about the future and what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if there's any statistics out there, but in our experience, most people come to us or that we know, they sort of just want to sell their business now. They haven't put any preparation or planning into it. So getting some help from some advisors and then putting that plan in place, maybe staying in the business for a bit longer, getting it to a place where it's more valuable, it'll sell easier, is always wise. But I think you've sort of hit the nail on the head. Most business owners or people running the businesses are concentrated on the business itself and not selling it, which is two different things. And I think there's a point to be made that if you're really good at selling things within your business and you think you can bring that to then selling your business, so they're two different things, selling things within the business and then selling the business, you're probably not going to have very much success, because there's a real skill set in selling a business and there's not a lot of technical aspects that go into it. So having the right advisors, the right legal team in place really help you with that. Something we'll probably cover in due diligence, but it is two distinctly different things, being able to sell things in your business to help it thrive and then being able to sell the business on your own without any help, which is something we would probably never advise. It was, even if a competitor comes in to buy your business, go and seek legal advice, speak to your accountant, speak to an advisor, speak to a corporate lawyer, because it'll be very, very difficult to do it on your own.
Yeah, it has been likened to a non-medical professional doing brain surgery on themselves.
Which you'd never want to do.
Yeah, exactly. Right, so let's go for the following, the factors that will affect a business sale in 2022. I suppose the first one is the type of business. So do you want to elaborate on that for us?
Yeah, so we've obviously spoken about the businesses that can be sold and businesses that aren't really saleable. So, solo businesses run by one person probably aren't that attractive to many buyers or investors. Then when we're talking about the types of business, anything that's well run and profitable, there's generally investors looking at them. But what they're now looking at is the succession of the business, the longevity of it. Is it based in, developing products? Does it make things? It all just depends. Green initiatives, anything to do with sustainability now is, high on the agenda of investors and people who buy businesses. But generally, anything that is of a good size with a good management team in place that can be run without the owner or owners or investors is always going to be, an interesting opportunity for somebody. It's just knowing who that somebody might be and getting connected to the right people.
Okay, so we've talked about that, so let's delve into that a little bit more. So people say, and I've heard you say it before, growth businesses will always sell better. What do we mean by a growth business?
Businesses that are growing in emerging markets, normally technology, pharmaceuticals, offshore wind, anything to do with energy. Purely because that's the way the world's going now, that's where people are looking to invest. It's just slightly easier when they're in one of those growth markets, or if a business is going through a huge amount of growth because they're doing something different. It could be their reputation, their client base. There's so many different variables that come into it. It's hard to pin down a specific sector, because there's lots of different investors and buyers out there who are looking for specific things that might be related to their previous experience. So you'll have investors who've come from, they've maybe grown a business in engineering or manufacturing or something like that. So they know how to run a business in that. So they're looking for a growth business that they can bring on, and bring into their portfolio, because they know the ins and outs of that business. So it's really hard to say, but there'll always be, you generally always like to think there'll always be a pool of investors, a pool of buyers, regardless of the sector, regardless of the sort of business type, who are interested in those sort of growth areas, or just in specific types of businesses in general. And they're always on the lookout for them, because they maybe know how to make them a little bit more profitable. They can maybe scale them a little bit more, and add that scale in, maybe integrate some of the businesses that they've already got. So there's a lot of ways that they see they can add value. So it's quite a hard question to answer. But there's a lot of opportunity.
Yeah. I suppose, yeah. I mean, the idea, I mean, for instance, if you're doing a coal-powered computer or something, then, you know, there's not much of a market for that. You're going to want something as a buyer or your business to be offering something, I guess, that has a future, has a, 15, 20 years at least, I would think,
as long as the business isn't going to, you know, stop without you there, or clients are going to leave, something that isn't going to be affected by something like a global pandemic. That's what people are looking at now, coming out of COVID. How have businesses fared through the pandemic? You know, if a business done really, really poorly because of the pandemic, then people are going to look at that. But then on the flip side, some businesses have thrived, so their valuations risen massively.
Well, I think Apple was the first company to reach the £1 trillion mark on the.
And that was during the pandemic. So it's all circumstantial at the time, but the people are looking at that now and how COVID's affected the business and how they've been trading, and could it continue to trade if the pandemic lasted. So there's all these questions that all come up during the due diligence process to see if it's worth buying or investing in any business. So yeah.
So I suppose one of the other questions that comes up in the due diligence process is, does your company currently turn a profit? Is it making money? Which obviously is going to affect the time it takes to sell your business, isn't it?
So, well, yes. If you use the general rule of thumb that businesses are sold using a multiple of profits, and then various other things, reputation, assets, and things, but most people talk about profits in a you know, a multiple of the profits, then yes. But that being said, if you're a technology startup going through a huge burn and you've got amazing IP and technology and patents, and you're losing a hell of a lot of money, that might not matter. So again, it comes down to the type of business. But in general, yes, you would expect the business would need to be making profit to be bought in terms of the acquisitions, what we're talking about. Businesses that are trading in a loss, you know, that's when you may be looking more down the insolvency route and taking a business out of distress or administration, which is something for another talk, you know, probably another one of these videos. But really, it's people are looking for businesses that are making, you know, profits, and investors and buyers may be looking for, you know, a minimum or maximum EBITDA to invest in. So regardless of the size of the business, it comes down to how much money they're making and how profitable they are.
Yeah, I suppose taking on you mentioned IP there as well. So the intellectual property, I suppose, is more relevant, isn't it, if it directly impacts your profits, or it has the potential to directly impact the profits of the business.
Yes and no, I suppose, because people might want that IP as a bolt-on to what they do. So it's easier to buy a competitor or buy an emerging business and bolt that on as it would be for them to develop themselves. And if someone's got IP and they've got a patent on it, it's going to be harder to do. They're going to have to find a different way of doing it. So if they know somebody who's done exactly what they want, it's easier for them to try and acquire them than it is to go through that development that company's already done. You know, the cash burn they've done to get to where they are, you know, you can acquire them, bolt them on, and it might make more sense financially and business-wise, because it'll accelerate that, you know, your business.
Of course, and you get all of the clients that business had as well, so, you know, win-win. Right then, so looking on, obviously we're looking at how fast you can sell your business and the different things that will impact that. And one thing that occurred to me is, if somebody is doing a few different people's jobs in a business, paying themselves one wage, an investor or somebody looking at sell a business, would they see that as not a true reflection of what the business is bringing in? Because, you know, they would have to then look at, well, how much is it going to cost to cover your expertise? Because your expertise is about 6 different people, and you're one person. You've been paying yourself one wage, and the profit and loss therefore says one wage. So what would you say to that? There's
probably 2 parts to that question. The first one about the person and covering what they do. Maybe it's not financially, but in terms of delivery. If that person can't be covered or doesn't have the cover in place, the business might not even be saleable to start with.
Right.
So if you've got an owner who's got a handful of employees but does most of the stuff himself, when he leaves, it's going to leave employees that don't know how to run the business.
Yeah.
So if that comes up, you know, through the due diligence, I'll get it right, in the checks and things, it might not even be a business that's worth buying. You know, if it's a service-based business, especially if it's, you know, a shop or a restaurant, that might be different. So it depends on the business. So going back to what you can do to try and sort of counteract that is having a team of people in place in your business that can run the business when you're not there, so you don't need to do all that. So the question would be, if you're doing all of that yourself, are you either a control freak and you want to keep on doing that even though you've got the staff who can do it, in which case, if you are, you really need to start letting some of those responsibilities out and, you know, grooming the team to run the business when you're not there. If it's the case that you just do everything yourself because you have to and you haven't got a team, then you've probably got to come to a realisation that your business might not be saleable yet. And you either need to decide if you ever want it to be, and if you do want it to be, you need to start thinking about exit planning or building up a business before you exit plan. So yeah, it really depends. It really depends from the buyer side when they're coming in and reviewing the business, what they see, where they see the potential, where they see the pitfalls, the downfalls. And most people buying businesses, especially seasoned investors, you know, will be able to see pretty quickly the situation within the business. You know, either from the accounts or the information they receive, because you know, good indication is how well they're put together. And if someone's doing all of the work and doing everything, the accounts and things can slip because they're concentrating on too many things.
Yeah, absolutely. So another consideration on how fast you can sell your business, we're going back to the buyers here, as to how, it's not just whether they're going to buy it, it's how are they going to pay for it, because you could have your investors who have an awful lot of money in their own accounts that they can just outright just pay for it, or do they need a bank loan, or all that kind of stuff. So if you want to take over from there.
Yeah. So there's definitely some considerations there. It comes down to, I suppose, due diligence. I know we'll keep going back to that, but when you're selling a business or buying a business, it's all about due diligence and knowing what you're doing. So it's very good when you've found someone who wants to buy your business to ask them for proof of funds. Have they got the funds available? How are they going to fund the business, the purchase of the business? Because something that we've not covered, but something that you may or may not be familiar with, is signing heads of terms. So when you sign heads of terms for selling your business, that means you enter into an agreement with a buyer. Now, there's only a couple of legal parts of the heads of terms, but one of them is the exclusivity period. So if you haven't done the due diligence and found out that they've actually got the funds available, that they've got investors in place, or they've got, you know, they're privately funding it, however it might be, and you enter into a period of exclusivity, which could be 3 months or 6 months, you're actually tied in. Within that time, if you haven't done the due diligence and they're trying to find the money to buy your business, you're stuck sat there because you can't then try and find other buyers. So if at the end of that period they haven't got the money, it's been a complete waste of time and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it.
Does that happen a lot?
It can.
Yeah.
If generally when people try and sell the businesses themselves, they don't understand. If an investor or a buyer comes along with heads of terms, you know, I wouldn't say it's common, but you do hear about it. But it goes back to that piece about being on the ball, knowing what you're doing. And I would say having a professional advisor in place, the chance of this happening would be slim.
Yeah.
So if you did have a broker or a professional advisor, corporate finance, or corporate lawyer, someone to have a look at that before you signed any legal documents, it's always wise. Hence why we'll always go back to having the right advice and the people in place can be invaluable. Because if you do go into a period of exclusivity, you may lose out on selling your business to somebody else, because they may, you know, someone who's particularly interested in your business might buy another business and therefore not want yours. So you really need to you know, be on top of that. And I would say the best way of doing it is by getting proper professional advice.
So the exclusivity, I'm just that only really ties down the person who's, or does it tie down both parties?
Well, essentially it doesn't. It ties down the person selling the business that the person buying it has an exclusive period to get the deal done.
Right, okay.
So if they waste that period because they then don't have the money, or they decide to buy something else and they drag their heels and it doesn't go through, there's nothing to say that needs to happen or change, you know what I mean?
Right,
There's
okay.
no legal ramifications for them, but if they pull out of the exclusivity period to sell it to somebody else, they could potentially be sued.
Right, okay.
So you don't want to be doing that. You want to
Yeah.
make sure the people that you're selling the business to have the money in place so they can move quickly, because you don't want to be waiting for funding in place, because it's just going to slow
Of
down
course.
the deal. So you know, another word of advice is to find somebody who's already got the money and who can move quickly.
Yeah.
In an ideal world.
Which all, as you've said a few times there, it comes down to getting the right professional help to do it. The right
At every
advisors,
stage.
the right legal,
Yeah.
and the right accountancy. Yeah, it's just the people who know what they're doing.
Mhm.
Such as WeSellAnyCompany.com. Anyway, so shameless plug. I hope you enjoyed that. Anyway. So a lot of what you've been talking about, really, it does come back down to getting the right professional help at all stages. And trying to do it yourself is never a great plan.
Well, never say never, but there's so many aspects to selling a business, you know, technical, legal, that having people who do this for a day job, all the professional advisors, it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
But that being said, if you run, you know, quite a simple, straightforward business and you don't have many legals and it's quite a straightforward sale, you could look to just, you know, you may not need a broker, you may not need a professional advisor, you may just need a corporate lawyer to look at the contract. So you don't always need everyone, and you know, they can get expensive depending on the size of the business.
Yeah.
If you're selling a small business and you have lots of advice, that can be expensive. If you're selling a big business and you've got a little bit of advice, then it's going to be complete value for money. So it
I suppose
all
it's
depends.
relative though, isn't it?
It's
'Cause
relative,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, if you've got a big business, then you're going to have probably a lot of these people on your working for you anyway, or with you, or you know, and you would need them. But if you've got a smaller business, then you won't have as much money coming in. But then again, you won't need as many people around you. So
If it's simple and straightforward, and you know, you're selling a small restaurant to somebody who wants to buy a small restaurant, and it's quite a straightforward transaction, you've agreed the figures, you've got a bit of legal advice, it may be nice, easy and straightforward.
Right, you've mentioned and skirted around something called due diligence. Now it sounds very technical and very legal. You know, I actually know what it is because you've told me. But for the benefit of people out there, what is due diligence?
Well, hopefully I haven't skirted around it, because it's a very, very important part of selling a business. It's basically just looking at all the information, asking all the right questions, making sure you understand everything that you're getting into. You know, it's just getting a good understanding and really getting into the nitty gritty of everything that's going on with the sale of your business. So understanding information about who you might be selling it to, getting all of your information ready so that the other party can do their due diligence, having everything prepared, easily readable, having your professional advisors available to answer their questions. All of this comes back to speeding up a sale. If you've got to go backwards and forwards and ask lots and lots of questions because it's not clear, it just slows everything down. So, you know, part of your exit plan and part of running a business ready to be sold, regardless if it's on the market or you're just thinking about selling it soon or not very soon, is having all of those documents ready. So the technical documents, the legal documents, all of your accounting information, your financials, all of your contracts, everything, having it already ready so people can just take it away and they can see all of the information that they need. The less questions they have, the speedier the process will be. So I think it ties in nicely with how quickly you can sell a business. It's how quickly you can do your due diligence on the buyer and how quickly they can do theirs on you, because that'll hugely speed things up.
Which also leads into the you part of it. Is the you a massive team of professionals? Do we need that team of professionals to help you do that, or can somebody just go it alone?
So it all depends. the professional advice you need will probably be relative to the size of the sale of the business. So a small business owner selling a small business that is quite straightforward probably don't need a lot of advice from professional advisors. They may choose to take it, but whether they need it or not, it might be more beneficial for them to just get legal advice.
Mm-hmm.
It all depends on the sale, but then obviously talking about, you know, advice being relative to the sale, the bigger the business, the more advice you will need. You know, you may need more advice at the start to help to sell it, more advice throughout from corporate finance in terms of, you know, the funding, or, you know, the due diligence part. There's lots of different advisors, professional advisors, who can help. Legal advice, corporate legal advice being the most important at any point of any of the sales.
Fantastic. Okay, I suppose the final thing I want to wrap up with is quite a big final thing. We're talking about the marketing. Is like we've talked a lot about finding a buyer and selling
assuming
it to somebody.
you've already got a buyer in place.
Yeah, but what about those people who don't? Because, you know, very often people don't. What's involved? What do you need?
So the majority of people who sell their business would start online. How do I sell my business? They may speak to their accountant, who knows a broker or business advisor that they can put them in touch with. Mm-hmm. So that's normally the starting point. You know, if you're interested in selling your business and a competitor comes knocking on the door, that's, you know, the golden egg, the holy grail.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen too often, but it does happen. So, you know, back to the advice of always having your business ready to sell is really good advice, and you hear say that a lot, but we can't really say it enough. In terms of the point at, I want to sell my business, but I don't have anybody to sell it to, speaking to a broker is always a good idea. There's lots of platforms online where you can list a business for sale. It'll go out to the database. It'll then be available online. People will be able to search it. So that's the one route. That's the traditional standard route. You know, get in touch with a broker, list it on a platform, hope that the broker or the platform delivers leads.
Can we do a shameless plug?
We can.
Yeah.
WeSellingYourCompany.com. We do have an online advertising platform, but we do have a huge broker network as well. So it's not always about just listing the adverts for sale. We often make introductions to who we feel are the best brokers to sell a certain type of business. So for an example, if there's an IT business comes to us online and says, look, I want to sell my business, it's £1 million turnover, and we're in IT and this is what we do, it's probably best that we introduce them to a couple of brokers who we know that have got a good track record in selling IT businesses, or businesses in a certain sector of a certain size, because the chances are they may have lists of buyers already. So you may not even need to market the business. It may be a broker calls or emails their list of potential buyers. So you can actually, going back to how do you sell a business quickly, that is a very, very good way of selling a business quickly. It doesn't always work, but it's a good place to start. So yeah, having the right people, having the right platform, and using the right methods. But that's generally how it starts. Yeah. There's things you can do over and above that, which not everybody uses. Social media's got some fantastic targeting when you do paid for advertising. Even paid on the search engines. If someone's searching, I want to buy a business, you can put your business front and centre by utilising those, which is more your speciality, and I'm sure you can elaborate on that. But it's not, a lot of people don't think about using those paid for services. You know, the targeting with social media, with Google, Bing, any of the search engines, because they've got so much data, is amazing. It all comes down to, you know, potentially what you're willing to invest in the sale.
Yeah, well, I think with all marketing, isn't it? It's all about finding that if you've got a which you'll know anyway. If people sell a product or a service, they already have this idea of, all right, this is my ideal client. This is what they like. So therefore, I'm going to present my offering to them in this way, and for this price, and that will be attractive. And there we go. We're going to do that. As far as the marketing side goes, you would know who those people are, you would know where to find them, you would have a hell of a lot of information, which WeSellingYourCompany.com already do, about sort of different people that we can partner people up with, isn't it? So but using the technological using technology really. You know, yes, as you said, I'm kind of a Google geek, so that's one of my strengths. You know, and I use that quite a lot. But it's the idea of we know how to find the clients, we know where they are, we know what's going to attract them, and we've already made relationships with a lot of them already.
So yeah, the way to think about it is it's
Yeah.
what's best for the person selling the business. So when someone comes to us to sell a business, what's best for them? Is it have they tried other methods before and has it not worked? So is some strategic targeting the best way to go, either social media or what I call human to human, actual picking up the phone and trying to generate interest, or email or video marketing or whatever it may be, but where you've actually got a human element? Or have they just not spoken to the right broker? Do they need an introduction to somebody else? Because again, going back to, you know, the example of the IT company who've tried to sell their business online and didn't get any buyers, you know, you introduce them to somebody who's well versed in selling IT companies and they might have a buyer the same day. That shows interest.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So it all depends. It's not a linear route to selling a business. It does go up and down, and it can stop there or it can continue. It all depends, and I think it's about always about what's doing right for the person selling the business, and knowing where, you know, how we can support them doing it.
Yeah, it's basically, I suppose, the fact that there's no one way to do this, because everybody's requirements are different, you know, and because of that, it's like an artist with his palette. I suppose that's how I look at marketing. It's like it's an artist with his palette, and you know, depending on what it is you're going to paint, what you're going to do, you'll choose to use different colours or not use other ones, and in certain ways, you know what I mean. And it's that sort of mix. That's the mix I like to look at with marketing. It's like who are you going to contact? Who do you know already? What does this person need? What's important to them? Do you know what I mean? And I suppose if you're doing this on your own, then that's what you need to look at when you look at your own business, isn't it? Is you're looking at, well, this is what my business is. Who is my ideal buyer first, and then there's a few different, which we could advise on, couldn't we? If people get in touch with us, we could advise people on that.
Give them direction, and some advice. I think one thing to think about is some people also see the sales as linear. I sell a certain product, so I must sell it to somebody who also sells a certain product because they might want to be expanding, which is a very good thing to think about in a method. But if you're a manufacturing or engineering business and you make something and you sell it to somebody who puts it who might be a component who then sells it on, your client might be interested in buying it as a bolt onto their business. So there's different things, and a supplier of theirs might be interested. So it's not always just people who do the exact same thing as you. It can be clients, it can be suppliers, because a supplier who supplies you with materials might buy your business to incorporate into theirs and cut you out. So they then take your clients as a starter. So there's lots of different things you can think about. You can be very strategic, or you can be very sort of generic. Let's post it on the website and hope people see it.
I think that's one thing that I always, and I think that's the way some clients look at this, or some people look at this, and it's something I would never ever. It's never a question of hope. It's you have to have that degree of intelligence. I don't mean as in intelligent person, but intelligence as in information that you have to hand to say, actually, what I'm doing has a high degree of probability of working for X, Y, and Z reasons. Do you know what I mean? And it has to be based on some sort of research. And do you know what I mean? It can't just be a shot in the dark and a scattergun approach, because a shot in the dark.
Well, as you know from us, we're a very data-driven business. Everything we do, we monitor and manage all of the information, all of the data. So the more businesses that we sell using different methods in different sectors for different prices, we're sort of getting an understanding of what works best. So again, we can have a data-driven approach to selling businesses. So moving forward, it's something that we're massively invested in, and we do monitor everything. So that's where we're sort of looking to in the future.
Fantastic. So this is in turn, it's how to sell your business in 2022, a shameless plug on We Sell Any Company, and a bit of an interview with Mark. So you've got 3 times the value in this one video. I hope you've enjoyed it. But thank you very much for listening. Our next video will be on due diligence, something we've talked about an awful lot. So we're going to break that right down to its component parts, let you know what due diligence is, and the different things that you should be looking out for.
Yeah.
Awesome. Right. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that's goodbye from me.
Bye.